Good evening, I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm Meg Gatto. The mayor's office didn't want you to see the records we're about to show you.
Yeah, Fox 8 attorney sent a letter threatening a lawsuit forcing the city to hand over these public documents. In our new investigation, those records have a crime watchdog calling for Mayor Cantrell to speak with investigators about how she and a member of her executive protection team spend time outside the office.
Well, so that's why the mayor needs to be questioned about this. She needs to make herself available to the investigators.
The new records we had to fight for and new videos center around a 6-day stretch in late September, early October, a long work week for NOPD officer Jeffrey Vappy, who was paid to protect Mayor LaToya Cantrell. Our stories have found Vappy spent some of many work days with the mayor inside the city's Upper Puntaba apartment, while the mayor did little work. These new records the city didn't want to hand over to us raise more questions about Vappy's timesheets and the mayor's need for police protection.
Do you see why the city didn't want to hand these over?
Well, this is embarrassing, and the city, particularly the city attorney's office.
Cantrell and Vappy boarded a flight to Los Angeles. They arrived just before 10 a.m. Receipts show they left the airport at 10:34 in an Uber and arrived at their hotel at 11:17. Cantrell and Vappy submitted all of their Uber receipts to the city for repayment. Those receipts don't show any other movement the rest of the day until 6:54 when an Uber took them on a 9-minute ride to a 24,000 square foot mansion for a dinner with Brad Pitt. They stayed at the house for 2 hours and 1 minute, arriving back at the hotel at 9:11. Vappy went off the clock 50 minutes later at 10 o'clock. That day, Vappy billed taxpayers for 16 hours of work. The next morning, they flew back to New Orleans. A source sent us this blurry picture of them in first class. That day, another 16 hours of work. That night, the plane landed back in New Orleans at 4 p.m., but Vappy stayed on the clock an additional 6 hours until 10 that night.
Is that a good use of police in the city?
No, because there's, you have to go through security to get on an airplane. We know that if it's an event where Brad Pitt and other VIPs were, we know that there was security at that event protecting all the guests. So, there are probably, most situations probably don't require a security detail to actually fly with the mayor or with any public official, because there's going to be security meeting them there at the event that they're going to, and there's going to be security there.
The next day, October 1st, the mayor's schedule has 2 security officers on duty, Luis Martinez and Robert Monlin. But taxpayers still also paid Vappy for 15 hours of work, 5 in the morning until 8 at night.
It appears that you have one officer who has a unique schedule that no other officer on the security detail has. So it raises more questions, because why does one officer have a particular schedule that's unique to him, and the other officers on the security detail seem to have normal rotating schedules that are standard within an NOPD security detail?
According to the NOPD, the mayor's security team typically works 4 days a week, 3 12-hour shifts and 1 8-hour and 35-minute one. But the week Vappy went to California, taxpayers paid him for 6 straight days, and seemingly for no reason on Saturday, October 1st, since 2 other officers worked the mayor's security detail that day. The records show this. That Saturday, the mayor had one event on her calendar, a graduation at noon. That day, Luis Martinez worked from 9 a.m. until 9 at night. Robert Monlin from 7 a.m. until 11 at night, and Vappy 5 a.m. until 8 p.m. Taxpayers paid officers for 43 hours of work to protect the mayor, who had one scheduled event that day. The city has refused to tell us what duties, if any, members of the mayor's security team are supposed to perform when they're not scheduled for her protection. But the NOPD says the timesheets are approved by a sergeant the police department hasn't named.
How difficult would it be for, a sergeant or someone in the NOP to question?
Certainly it would be difficult, because I think it's fair to say they would be afraid of retaliation from the mayor or from someone in the mayor's office or from someone in the upper power structure within, within City Hall.
Back to that Saturday, October 1st, after the mayor arrived back from California. According to video from a camera operated by the French Market Corporation, Cantrell spent some of that Saturday afternoon at the Upper Pentaba apartment, watering plants and leaving her apartment alone. One security officer, Luis Martinez, arrived at 7:22 p.m. Cantrell wasn't even there then. She walked up alone from the French Quarter 8 minutes later, and they left. At 10:50, the mayor returned alone. We never spotted Vappy the entire day at the Pentaba, despite being paid. All of this has this crime watchdog asking, what did Vappy do for his 15 hours of work, 5 a.m. until 8 p.m. on Saturday, October 1st?
That's what the investigation is going to have to uncover, what the public purpose was and the legitimate public purpose for him billing for those hours when there were two other security members on duty at the time. So what's supposed to happen is there's supposed to be two security members available to the mayor. On that particular date, which you've documented, she had 3 assigned to her. And it is another example of the misuse of her authority, and the public is faced with footing the bill.
Right now, the Orleans Inspector General is investigating these allegations. Federal investigators are investigating the mayor, and the head of the Metropolitan Crime Commission is hopeful these findings become a part of that separate probe.
So, I mean, that's why there has to be an independent investigation. I'm hopeful that the reported federal investigation expands to include some of these potential abuses because they're all interconnected.
The new video from a public records request continues to raise questions about how Vappy spends his time. He's the only member of the mayor's security team seen on security camera entering the mayor's apartment. Like on September 26th, he wasn't on the mayor's security detail that day either, but the NOPD paid him to work from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. He arrived at the Pentaba at 5:24 p.m. and entered alone. Cantrell showed up an hour later. For 2.5 hours of his shift, he stayed inside the apartment while being paid by the NOPD. Political analyst Robert Collins says the responsibility ultimately comes down to the mayor, who has refused to answer our questions.
So, Mr. Zurich, thank you for being here. Kind of freaks me out to see you.
Because Collins says it's the mayor who is Vappy's superior, in charge of how he spends his time and taxpayer money. We want to reiterate that the city would not tell us what NOPD officers are getting paid for or what they're supposed to be doing when they're not assigned to the mayor's security detail. Vappy was removed from the mayor's security detail and reassigned as the NOPD's Public Integrity Bureau investigates his timesheets. Prior to joining the mayor's executive protection team, Vappy served as an asset forfeiture detective and before that, a homicide detective.